everyone, thank you for tuning in to episode number 4. You guessed it, we're back at the Wynn, this time for a daytime session to see what the action is like for F1 weekend. Before I dive in, I just wanted to thank you all for checking out my vlog. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and the response has really exceeded my expectations so far. If you want to keep seeing a new video every week, hit that like and subscribe button below. Anyways, back to the poker. I sit down with 700, and before I can even set up my camera to film, in the very first hand I pick up a couple $100 by stacking a shorty. Just 2 or 3 hands later, we get into an interesting one. The cutoff limps and the button raises to 20. We're in the small blind with Jack 10 of hearts and go with the call. When I'm at a new table, I like to start off slow to get a feel for how people play. The big blind didn't get the memo though and raises to 80. The cutoff folds and the button calls. We come along. The flop is 8 of diamonds, 9 of hearts, 2 of diamonds, giving us the open ender and backdoor flush draw. I check it over to the big blind, who fires out 150. The button folds. The big blind could have pocket 8s and 9s in his range, but I think it's more over pairs or hands like ace king, ace queen, or a suited ace. I call to see if we can pick up any more equity on the turn. The 4 of hearts fits the bill, giving us a flush draw to go along with our straight draw. I check again, and the big blind puts out a chunky bet of 350. I only had a bit less than 7 under behind and was torn between jamming or calling. Thinking it over, calling didn't seem to accomplish much. If I just called, he could either end up winning with ace high on the river if I bricked, or folding if I let out when one of my draws hit. Given the pot size, I had enough equity versus anything in his range if he called the jam anyway, and there was a slight chance of getting ace high to fold right away. Sometimes you just have to go with jack high, so I said, calling. After a minute, the big blind found a fold, and we scoop a nice pot with jack high. We open ace 9 of hearts under the gun to 15. The button, our friend Mick Mac from episode 1, raises to 45. It folds back to me and I call. The flop is ace, 10, 7, rainbow. I check and Mick Mac checks it back. The turn is a jack, completing the rainbow. I check again and now Mick Mac bets 70. With top pair and a gut shot, I think the only move is to call. The river is a beautiful 8, giving us the unlikely straight. I check to let Mick Mac do his thing and he bets 170 this time. This one felt pretty close between a raise or a call. Having the ace in my hand wasn't great because it blocked some of his 2-pair combos. He could still have king queen or queen 9 played this way, and I'm not even sure if the offsuit combos are out of Mick Mac's range. I went with a safer route and just called, and he showed ace queen. Let's break this hand down in GTO Wizard. Pre-flop open is pretty standard. Facing the 3-bet, we should be folding ace 9 suited about half the time versus a GTO opponent. Against this player, I am never folding since his 3-betting range is much wider than optimal. On the ace 10-7 flop, we are checking nearly 100% of the time. I thought this would be a board the 3-better likes to fire on often, but GTO is checking back half the time. On the turn jack, we can find some leads but are still checking the vast majority of our hands. The button is mixing 50-50 between betting and checking. Facing this bet, we have a clear call with the ace 9. You see a lot of people leading rivers when they hit, but GTO is basically never doing that here. It checks again, and facing the river bet, we see GTO mixes between calling or raising with the straight, preferring to call more often with its exact ace 9 suited. You can check the EV difference and see it's actually the same between calling or raising. Overall, I am pretty happy with how I played this one. Reviewing all of your hands, not just your losing ones, is an important part of the poker process. I'm excited that GTO Wizard has brought me on as an affiliate, so if you're looking to try it out for 10% off, use the link in the description below. In this next one, we open 10-9 of hearts under the gun. The cutoff raises to 50 and the button calls. It seems like today's theme is hearts, so we call too. The flop is ace, jack, jack with 2 hearts. I check and the cutoff continues for 45. The button folds. I am not loving the paired board, but I can't fold the flush draw yet and call. The turn is a blank deuce. I check and she checks back. The river is the ace of spades, leaving us with just 10 high. When she checks back the turn, I definitely don't think she has a jack. There are some aces she has that are looking to pot control, but not too many. Overall, it really weakened her range. I don't want to check and lose to king or queen high, so I put out a small bet of 80 to target those hands. No point in going larger since we would just run into a full house, which would never fold. She goes into the tank before saying, "This is probably just a donation," and calling. She flipped over her cards, and the first one I saw was a queen, and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, she just soul read me. But then I see her other card is a jack. She was convinced I had the ace, so maybe a larger suicide bluff would have worked. After starting out hot, our stack has been creeping down. No big hands or interesting spots to report, just a lot of 3-betting pre and missing flop, flopping big draws multi-way and missing them, your normal poker stuff. We finally look down at a pretty hand, ace queen of spades, in the small blind. The cutoff, who seems like a pro but I haven't played with before, opens to 20, and I raise to 65. I'm not sure why I sized down here. Maybe I thought he only bet 15, but this should have been 4 to 5x. The cutoff calls. The flop is 9 of spades, 6 of clubs, 3 of hearts. With 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw, I put out a small C bet of 45. GTO prefers a larger bet here of 1/2 to 2/3 pot, but it's basically the same EV as a smaller bet, so not a huge mistake. He calls. The turn is the 3 of spades. I check, not wanting to face a big raise since this board is tricky for my range. GTO prefers to continue betting, but once again, it's not a big EV difference between betting or checking. The cutoff fire is 140, and there's nothing for us to do but call. The river 4 doesn't help. I check and he follows up with a bet of 300. This isn't a good spot to be a hero, so we fold and move on to the next one. You know what? Let's give ace queen suited another shot. The cutoff opens to 20 and we raise to 60 on the button. It folds back to him and he calls. The flop is king of spades, 8 of clubs, 4 of hearts. Looks good enough for me to c bet, so I put out 45. He pretty quickly raises to 115. He's a friendly guy who hasn't gone after me all day, so I don't think he's getting out of line and fold. He was nice enough to show the king jack offsuit, saying it was for the vlog. It's getting a bit later and we're down to 6-handed. I have the straddle on, as has been known to happen when I am upstuck, and look down at king 10 offsuit. The button, a good pro I am friendly with, opens to 35. The big blind, who I think is a recreational player, calls. I come along to see the flop. It is queen, jack, 5, rainbow. I've had a dozen open-enders today and nothing has hit. Maybe this one will be different. The big blind checks, I check, and the button bets 40. The big blind calls, and for this price I think just calling to realize our equity is the move. The turn is a total blank and it checks around. The river is an offsuit 8 and the big blind checks to me. When the button checked back on the turn, and now the big blind has checked the river, I don't think either player is particularly strong. The button would have kept betting a good queen or better on the turn, and I think the big blind would be betting his value hands on the river after the turn check through. Having the 10 in our hand blocks someone backdooring a straight with 10-9, and we can have a lot of those in our range from the straddle, even the offsuit ones. I bet 110 looking to target most one pair hands. The button folds and now the big blind is in the tank. He thinks for a minute before calling. I table my king high and he flips over ace queen, a hand I definitely didn't expect him to show up with. We open ace king off from early position to 15 and our pro buddy raises to 60 from the small blind. I could go either way between calling or raising here, but settle on a call this time. The flop is queen 3-2 with 2 hearts. He bets 40 and I call. The turn is the jack of spades, giving us a gut shot to go along with our overcards. However, when he fires for 140, we have to let it go. Stuff hasn't exactly been going my way today, but sometimes that's just poker. I've given back all of the early profits, but still feeling good about how I've been playing. Early position limps and we look down at, you love to see it, pocket aces. I'm next to act and bump it up to 25. It folds to the cutoff, who raises to 80. It folds back to me, and this player has not been too active pre-flop. His 3-betting range is tilted towards value, so our only question is how much to raise. With a little less than 700 in our stack, a 4-bet in the 200 range would be committing about a third of our chips. If you're putting in that much, it's better to just go all in, so I say, all in.
All in.
The cutoff snap calls and asks if we have aces. I give him the bad news and flip over my cards, and he turns over pocket kings. What a setup. Aces versus kings to get us back in the green. Can we hold? Make sure to give this video a like to send me that run good. The flop comes down, 8-4 king. And we can't find a miracle ace on the turn or river. Losing aces versus kings, it feels like the poker gods are telling me to take the rest of the day off, so we wrap it up and call it a night.